dark when I sit there in an Illuminati meeting.
No one wants to see that.
I just checked her on YouTube.
I've got a trick. We need clean headed. Should have seen the tables and
We're
rejected.
shredded downstairs.
Right?
We're shredded downstairs.
No, not cross-shredded line.
Sorry.
You need to do the urgent thing.
Surely you can do it. Well, whoever the chair person will be, of course.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Barnoldswick Town Council full meeting. Thank you everybody for coming. First of all on the agenda is election of a new chairman as is tradition. I'm going to resign my position and moving on. Councillor Wick.
Chairman, I think you automatically get kicked off. You don't need to.
Well, I'll resign.
Chairman,
Out that door.
Chairman, it gives me very great pleasure to propose Councillor Jodie Marie Hoyle as the new chairman of Barnoldswick Town Council. Jodie has been a member of the Town Council for several years now. She has been the mainstay of the ELF operation at our Switch On events. She dresses up very well in terms of costumery, and so the addition of a chain of office would be an entirely appropriate activity for her. And very recently she officiated as head judge at the Barnoldswick leg of the Loyal Company of British Town Criers National Championship, where she excelled herself. I, in writing a little script for our town crier, asked the opinion of colleagues on the town council, and the sentence that was inspired by yourself, Chairman. The town crier ran her pen through, so I cannot refer to the fact that the previous weekend Jodie had fallen asleep in a bathroom. So that has nothing whatsoever to do with it. However, you yourself, Chairman, thought that was a notable event, and so I have included it in this proposal of Jodie as chair. I think Jodie has proven herself as a very capable councillor, and I am absolutely convinced that she will be a very competent chairman of the town council. I so move.
I can confirm there is video and photographic evidence of Sarah sleeping. So the motion is for Jodie to take the chair. Seconded over there.
Seconded by. Thank you.
Rose Parker. All those in favour say aye. Smash it. And I will switch places with Jodie. You've got your speech is coming. Thanks for coming.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity. We need to sign this. Oh,
These are readers out as well.
Yeah, you can do
I
that.
had to read it out, so
I, Jodie Marie Hoyle, having been elected to the office of chairman, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and willfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of a member of Barnoldswick Town Council. Right, sound from
Speech.
Thanks for coming. Right, we are now on item 3 of the agenda to elect a vice chairman of the Barnoldswick Town Council. David?
Chairman, I took the opportunity prior to the meeting that we had to postpone to canvass Councillor Chris Church as to his willingness to take the vice chairmanship. And he said, well, as long as the chair was doing all the work, he was more than happy to take it on. And I said, well, I'm sure that Geordie will be assiduous in her duties, and very little will fall to Chris during his year. I omitted to say that you were getting married, and that could cause some sort of hiatus.
It's fine.
It fits into the calendar. So, on that basis, Chairman, can I move Councillor Chris Church?
Second that, Chair.
All those in favour? No, that's on the, it's on the agenda. Yes,
Is it?
yeah, she's got her own section.
It's number 15, I probably should have put a bit further up, but go on.
We could go around with introductions anyway.
Yeah, and give you a would everybody like to make their introductions?
No.
Okay. Starting with Chris, our vice chair.
Thank you. Chris Church.
Shall I just introduce Rebecca and then we'll ignore it after number 15?
Yes.
It's a bit rude to put itself on with hindsight. When I thought about it. So this is Rebecca Lewis. Rebecca is our new assistant. She started yesterday. Baptism of fire, right?
And she's still here.
She makes good bagels. Yeah, very busy the last 2 days.
Oh, number two.
Oh yes, it's been well, so gone.
Chris Church. Now it appears Vice Chairman. Oh, and now member of Pendle Borough Council.
Tom Whip, also a member of Pembroke Council and Town Council. For the benefit of...
They all know me.
The benefit of...
We just do this all the way around.
We knew I am. Joe, I'm well.
I'm currently the chairman of the Town Council. Geordie Holly.
I'm Mike Whittingham, I'm the ex-chairman. I'm divorced.
David Whip, I used to be a chairman, but I am no longer. But I am double-hatted together with colleagues across the room. I'm also a member of the Borough Council.
John Rose Parker, Barnoldswick Town Council.
Colin Hare, Barnoldswick Town Councillor.
Right. Item number 4. Oh, we have an urgent item added to the agenda.
Urgent item is to consider a complaint, but due to the nature of going under GDPR, can we request it's taken in confidential session?
Chair, this complaint, I would suggest that we move to the end of the agenda, exclude press and public for that.
Do you have a second of it?
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Thank you.
Do you have apologies for absence, Stuart?
Yeah, Marjorie and Mick Strickland.
Do we have any declarations of interest?
For Rebecca's benefit, a declaration of interest if there's something on this agenda that would financially impact. So, for example, if there was a planning permission and it was on John's garden, and he might benefit from it, take himself out of the room and not take part in it. Yeah?
Are we going to move the open forum to the end of the meeting?
If you so wish.
That's we have no members of the public. We will move the open forum to the end of the meeting, and any questions that need to be asked on YouTube we will address. Thank you. Item number 7, to consider the establishment of committees and subcommittees and agreed terms of reference. Yes, David.
Chairman, can I propose that we establish committees that we currently have, which is a general purposes committee, an allotments committee, I'm letting the motorbike go.
Oh, sorry.
A planning committee and a HR committee with the existing terms of reference, which GP is events, environmental schemes, buildings, stuff like that, allotments, perhaps self-explanatory, and the planning committee is to consider any significant planning applications that there may be, and HR, again, I think is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So can I move that?
Second that.
All those in favour? Right. Item number 8. To agree membership of the committees.
Chairman, we generally, on allotments, have a small number, 3, 4, 5, depending on the number of volunteers that there may be.
Yeah. Do we have any volunteers for the planning committee?
Should we do allotments? Do you want to spin allotments?
All right. Do we have any volunteers for allotments?
Thank you.
Chairman, is there anybody not here who may wish to be?
I think
On
some
that.
that are already on the planning.
Mix them up. I will write out to them after the meeting and ask them which committees they want to be part of and add them to, if that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairman, in terms of planning, again, it's a small number. What meetings we've had this past year have mostly been in conjunction with others. It's met at 6:30 before a 7 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
It's a small number and it doesn't meet unless there is something significant. So it's as and when. I think,
Whoever can
I mean,
make it.
5, no, I think
Five.
it's probably about 5 people.
Yeah. Do we have 5 people? We do?
Not 4, fine.
5. 4 down here and 6.
Who also on the plan, but I saw you 4, sorry. Tom, sorry, Tom. 5? She's
So
yours.
you've got-
No.
Chris.
Chris, sorry. It was only because we're looking down that side, sorry. Right, okay.
Again, Chairman, if anybody that isn't present wants to join
Would
me,
wish to join.
that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Human resources.
Well, you passed over GP.
I'll look on this one.
I'm going.
Oh, sorry.
I'm reading it out in order, David.
Right. I'm going off the same list in a different order.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, General Purposes Committee, which we all done, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't want to be on it?
And the key thing in terms of it's a whole council, except for anybody that doesn't think we could make the meeting on a regular basis. But everybody is invited to join.
The HR Committee, I know we have people that have expertise. In that area.
Chairman, I think you're probably looking at 3 people perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll volunteer again.
I'll do it again.
Okay. Buildings, that's GP subcommittee.
Yes, so it's up to the GP committee.
Right, yeah, decide which, yeah, no problem. Right, item number 9, to consider a timetable. We've considered that, is that?
Chair, I move that we accept this timetable.
Do you have a seconder? Chris? And
Chairman, there's just one which we may not need, and it's the council meeting on 15th of June, and it was there because we had to do the audit.
yeah.
So the intention with that one was that would just be a single item agenda for the audit, the necessary paperwork thing, and that would meet in advance of the General Purposes Committee.
Right.
So it's not like we've got a full council meeting, it's just a single thing to deal with.
Yeah.
And that has to be done in a time scale. And it's actually done by
Before the 5th
End of June.
Yeah.
It'll be financial, it's just assuming.
Right, so barring the 15th of June.
Yeah.
All right, second. And are we all in agreement? Item number 10 on the agenda, to appoint representatives on outside bodies. To appoint representatives of outside bodies. Which outside bodies are we needing representatives for?
I would very much like to continue with Bancroft Mill.
Yep.
We also have the skate committee, which myself, Carla, and
I would like to go back on board.
Alright.
We don't in the last meeting.
back on board.
No. That's really good.
So, skate park, Jodie, Callum, Tom,
Yeah, sure.
and Asmai. Yeah? Mick. Sorry. I should have looked at different names. Sorry, not me. Anyone then.
And there's also the West Craven Area Committee as well.
Yes, I have been reliably informed that is my responsibility.
Jodie, thank you. I'll answer tomorrow because she asked me the other day.
Is that everything?
We usually put Barney here, but I don't know if we need to.
No, because it's,
Changing
Right.
places, isn't it?
yeah.
Chairman, I think Councillor Adams is the trustee of that
Yeah,
in her own right.
yeah, on a
So
personal level.
I don't think it, yeah.
could I suggest, in anticipating moves by Pendle, that we could pre-appoint a prospective representative for any such planning committee at Pendle Council?
Would you like to put that forward as a motion?
I think you need to explain.
Yeah, so at the last full council meeting in Pendle, they voted to move towards abolishing planning done at area committees and to reform a central planning committee which will sit for 12 hours to discuss all the planning issues throughout the borough at once.
12 hours?
Well, that's generally the length of meetings they're on for.
Don't put a time scale
Now,
on it.
we asked quite strongly that such a planning committee should have representatives from the area, from the town and parish councils, whenever they are deciding the planning issue in that area, those parishes. So, is it due to come into effect in August? September. So that's before we can really put someone up for as a representative. So I would suggest preemptively doing that now.
Chairman, I'm going to argue against us doing that at this stage. And the reason for that is, although there was a proposal at the annual meeting of Pendle Council last week that there ought to be a co-opted member from the relevant town or parish council if a planning application is considered in their area, that was not accepted by the controlling group on Pendle Council. They did say that they would consider it, so we don't know that there is going to be one. representation. And although it would only be when there were planning applications considered by that central committee affecting the Barnoldswick township that somebody would be invited to attend, the way that Councillor Tomwick pitched it in saying that the meeting would last for 12 hours is probably not conducive to getting everybody volunteering to actually do it. So I think, the meetings when we did have a central committee did go on for 12 hours, or the sessions did, because of the site visit, then there was a meeting. And they went on beyond midnight. It was absolutely ridiculous. But, it is what it is. I think it would be better see whether Pendle Council do establish the committees with the opportunity for town and parish council representatives to be co-opted or not. And there would be an opportunity at our meeting in whenever it is.
June.
No, it'll have to be the September council meeting where we could put it forward.
So do we want to leave that and see whether it is to go on the agenda for September the 14th? I don't want to do it. Yes. Right. Next item on the agenda is to inspect any deeds and trust instruments in the custody of the council. To follow my email.
No, they weren't here. They're in paper form. If anyone wants to have a look at them.
Yeah. Chairman, could I propose that we defer consideration of this item towards the latter end of the meeting? In the meantime, the file is passed round and people inspect the land registry record.
Yes. You can.
Can I also ask that we restrict the rustling of papers from in?
Yeah. Right, item number 12, the minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody have any issues?
Chair, I move that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Okie dokie, do we have a second for that? Councillor Hurd? Does everybody agree with that? Okay, that's not good. Right, item number 13 on the agenda, financial matters.
Can I just point out that somewhere in the Excel spreadsheet, I missed a line, so these aren't lined up against the right things. I need to fix it. I didn't spot it till after it gone out. So we haven't really given £1,679.84 in grants and donations. That's against events.
I'm really worried about that.
There you go.
To confirm and approve payments made by the town clerk to the town clerk to the town council since the last meeting of the council. To delegate consent of payments prior to the next meeting of the town council. So.
Chair, I move that we delegate the authority to the clerk to make such process.
Would anybody like to second that? Councillor Hurd?
Yes. Can I also move that we approve the payments that have been made?
Yes. And Councillor Richards seconded that. Are we all in agreement? Thank you very much. Right. Item number 14. To consider a grant application for Friends of Rolls-Royce Football Club for £5,000 for purchasing equipment and machinery for pitch maintenance and to pay for a summer treatment programme to improve the quality of the playing surface. We've all got our grant applications. Does anybody have any extra information on this other than what's on the application form? No?
That's it.
Right. What?
Whenever the budget was signed,
How's that? Councillor?
Thank you, Chairman. The application is in the sum of £5,000.
Yes.
And although we do have, I think it's £7,000. We used it, didn't we? Yeah. We used to have £7,000 in budget, and it's one of the budgets that we trimmed. We've only got £5,000 in the budget, and as such, we try and share it out between different organisations. So typically, we're only looking at applications in the £1,000 range. Could be small, could be a little bit larger. I do think that 5 out of 5,000 is really too much. I mean, I would, perhaps think that 500 might be nearer the mark, but clearly, if they're looking for significant sums of money, in the order of thousands, a gesture isn't going to go far towards them. I mean, I wonder whether we could defer the application for further consideration, and in the meantime, suggest that they could have a discussion with people who are well versed in grant funding applications, and we can perhaps give them some advice as to where they can go for such sums of money. I appreciate the Rolls-Royce are no longer supporting the leisure centre and the clubs, and they've got to raise lots of money, but 5k is far more than what we could give to one single applicant.
I agree with that. Do we have a second for?
Yeah, I'll second the deferral. Yeah, sure.
And is everybody in agreement? Right. Item number 15 on the agenda, recruitment. To receive an update from the clerk on the current position regards the new events and administration assistant, which we've already done. Hello, Becca. Item number 16, events. To discuss and consider events for the remainder of 2022. David, Councillor.
Sorry, Chairman. I'm sure that others will take up the other agenda items in due course. This was placed on the agenda to give further consideration for the programme of events.
Yeah.
I think that the outline is that we've got Band on the Square,
Yeah.
clearly within the thick of it in terms of implementing that, and it's due to happen next week.
Yeah.
And that's on track more or less to get delivered. The the new events officer is having a baptism of fire in terms of getting thrown in at the deep end, but in terms of delivering the event, all the planning is in place. We've met with the police. We've got things lined up. We will struggle, I think, with the usual cohort of volunteers.
Yeah.
We've not done this now for 3 years. Some of the volunteers that we had have fallen away, and so there is some trepidation as to just how strong our volunteer cohort will be, and if that's strong enough to sustain those of us who will be volunteering and not finishing us off. So that remains to be seen. So there is a plea for any volunteers that we might have.
Councillor
apologise.
Can I just apologise? Publicly apologise.
Why
Booking a
really?
holiday. And not being here.
No, I don't accept it.
So Saturday night.
It's Saturday night.
Yeah. I mean, there's somebody else involved with the, at the presentation end,
Yeah.
who can't make it because the holidays were changed and they had they'd actually changed an arrangement so that we could do it on the traditional bank holiday weekend, and then they changed the bank holidays and all of a sudden they were away.
And now he's cancelled his holiday, so he can.
Ah.
I blame the
So
Queen.
he's, that's dedication.
No,
Mr.
Yeah.
Porter.
He was actually going away,
I am going away.
like,
So.
flying.
I'm driving away. Happily with a smile on my face.
Chairman, unless Joe says otherwise, there is one aspect of the event which we said we should discuss.
Fence.
Yes, but
That's outstanding.
it perhaps is something we should. I mean, I think we can discuss it in public. Yeah. Okay. Right.
I haven't done that man, I should be
Well, right, so we have to hire in the order of 60 fence panels in order to fence off the event, in addition to the ones that we hold as the town council. And last year, financial year, we identified as a town council that it was desirable for us to have some non-standard sized fence panels in order to be able to better fence off, like when we do the beach and the current arrangement on the town square where, anyway.
Yeah.
So, and we identified that it would be desirable to have some non-standard fence panels for bands on the square in order to accommodate the new layout we've got. In looking into that, Joe identified a new product which has literally come onto the market today.
Literally, it's not company, we're just selling them today.
Yeah, and instead of the Hurra-style fence panels, we wouldn't be better doing this with pressing public too because it's boring, but instead of the Hurra fence panels with the frame right around the edge, and then you clip those together into the blocks, the new offer is for the mesh panelling, which is strengthened by having ribs on it. So it's got 3 ribs, and it's the sort of stuff that you see on permanent installs. I
Like
can
around
see.
the park, like around the cricket court.
Yeah.
That goes like that.
Yeah.
It's like that.
And the way that it works is you have loose legs which are inserted into the mesh in order to give it rigidity and fix them together. And they go into the conventional blocks that we normally have. Now, there's a minimum order of 50, which, together with the stock that we currently have of the conventional panels, would be, and begging a few more from somewhere else, would be enough to do bands on the square. The advantage of these new style panels is that they stack and they take very little room up because they just slot into each other. The bars are separate, the poles are separate, so there's an advantage in that. They're better for transportation. The disadvantage is that I think that they would be more difficult to erect because you're pushing poles into the panels and all that sort of stuff. The financial aspects are, to purchase the 50, it's circa £2,000. However, we pay circa £400.
It should have been more, I've got someone else's discount on us, but yeah.
Okay.
But I was quoted anything up to £900 higher than this time because everyone had them out for Jubilee.
So if you go off the 400, we get a payback in 5 years, and the question is, does the town council think that investing in these new panels would be worthwhile? The alternative, and going back to Plan A as it were, to actually get some non-standard width ones, would cost us between, and this rough figure, between £500 and £1,000. So the additional cost would be in the order of £1,000.
No, to buy.
Yeah. So what it would be to buy and modify and stick with the existing ones.
Right.
But we would still have the £400 or whatever cost. So we're going to be spending either 1,200, 1,250 or 2,000.
Yeah. Do we invest in the future?
It's like that.
Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Yeah, bear in mind that David likes to keep every last bit of anything that we manage to keep anywhere. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Have you actually got, are you going to be able to get rid of something to store with?
Yes, Councillor Wynne.
Yes, Chairman, this was the second question that we asked ourselves in the office.
Where are you putting them?
Under it. We have space in between the two flood containers, which is currently taken up with an IBC which stands on pallets, and it was installed for watering, and so it's about 4 foot wide, slightly more I think, but we could remove the IBC, industrial container, the pallets, and amend the door, as it were, into that area, and they would stack in there. So yes, there is space. It would be outside, but it would be adequate.
And where would the IBC and pallets go?
We would dispose of the IBC or find a home for it on an allotment.
Okay.
Councillor Church?
Just a thought as an aside, if we are the first body to be getting these things, and they're obviously quite innovative, if we are invested... Sorry?
Advertise them. Sorry.
What did you
You
say?
could market them for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, would there be any neighbouring authorities or any similar who might want to hire them off us?
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Well worth.
Chairman, I thought the question that Chris was going to ask was, would we get them at a discount in order to provide an example of use? I have asked that question.
Yes,
no, I haven't had an answer yet. But it literally spotted them on the website. I rang and spoke to 2 people, and they both said, "Oh, well, actually, we don't know about these because they've just come onto the system." So, I mean, that's a bit of trepidation. They're a bit of an unknown quantity. So Tom and I have been going over what could be difficult with them. But yeah, on balance, as long as we can cancel the ones that we ordered, I'd go for them.
basically the question is, do we spend £2,000 buying them so we've got them for future, and we could possibly profit from them?
Just to develop on Councillor's second point, as he says, these are new, and I'm ashamed that I didn't think of that first, because I've been associated with this industry for some time. Could we suggest to them that we will cooperate or even support or whatever any study that they want to publish in their own trade press matter.
I think
Case studies.
that's a good idea.
Just about anybody who brings anything out nowadays puts out case studies on it. This, you know, these are the first people who've used it, this, that, and the other, and we all pose up with our hair combed, putting these things up and everything. And considering the kind of budgets that marketing departments have, I'm sure we could persuade them to buy a penny or two.
That's an excellent point. Joy, you all right to
Yeah.
put them forward once? Right. So all those in favour of buying?
Well, I'll put a proposal on the table that we authorise the clerk to acquire 50 panels and the ancillary posts and blocks and clips that are required at an estimated cost of circa £2,000. And secondly, that the Town Council approach the company involved with their supply to enter into an arrangement whereby we would promote or assist in promoting the new product on the basis of a discounted cost for their purchase.
We've got something for that? Councillor Howard?
Perfect, thank you.
And all those in favour? Thank you.
Of course, if they crap, sorry, if they are, if they are rubbish, you know, yeah, we're not
As
going to
I
tell
don't
them
want to take them down, we'll let you know.
They don't look as
Heavy.
heavy or cumbersome, do they?
Do we have any other events we need to discuss?
Oh, sorry, Chairman, we got onto a bit of a tangent there, didn't we?
Yeah.
The clerk asked a question a little while ago, or we didn't have a definitive answer, in regard to the Day of Dance,
Ah, yes.
which is on the
2nd of July.
2nd of July. So I think the question is, do we include that in our event calendar, have a market in conjunction with it, that sort of thing?
I think we did.
Do we agree?
We do say we're on the market.
Okay. In that case, can I propose that we formally include it in the calendar? Because I think we did it informally.
Yeah, that's right.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Whittingham.
We then go on to Barnoldswick Beach, which Rebecca is seizing hold of with great gusto.
Yes.
The proposal with the beach, from our perspective, and Rebecca might have different ideas, but it was a cut down beach, so we provide a sand pit which would be undercover, but we would not put out the full monty of the enclosed social area and the carpet and all that sort of stuff. That will go, and the benefits are it's a lot less volunteer effort and reduced cost, but there's work in progress in terms of how we would perhaps sustain a market in conjunction with the beach, where we have donkeys and all that sort of stuff. So there's a bit of detail to work through on that. And then the other events that we've got agreed, we said a Kite Festival in September. We haven't really done any work on that. We've got the Switch On event in November. Can't remember if we had something in October. Did we have something in October?
No.
Was it Colin's taking charge of remembrance today? Do we need subcommittees for any of these?
Working groups.
Working groups sorting out.
Yeah. I mean, we can leave it to GP really, to,
Yeah.
to get volunteers if there are any.
Move. Yeah. Move that to
Um,
GP so we can get stuff sort of
Yeah.
in and
And then anything further in the future, I think it needs to be discussed at GP and tap into Rebecca's ideas and take it from there.
okay. Do I need a second of that? Yeah. Right. Does everyone agree with everything that's on board? Yeah. We'll go on that. Right, item number 17. I think, Chris, are you the best person to put us in on this one? The
Thank you.
Wells Pharmacy.
Yes, thank you. I have drafted a letter. Do you want me to read it out or pass around a copy?
I'll get a copy of it.
I don't send us a copy of it.
Sorry?
Is this the same one you sent us a copy of?
Oh, yeah, of course you will have. Yeah, I'll see it. I beg your pardon, yes. Yeah, just on personal experience and on seeing a lot of anger on social media. They have ongoing staffing problems at Wells Pharmacy. Now, this is serious enough that it impacts on the usual pharmaceutical functions, the prescriptions and everything. People are saying they're having to come back because they haven't got the stuff, it's urgent, etc. Now, that is a problem enough in itself, but it is only one of two pharmacies in the area. So anybody in theory who wants to defect, they can do that. The other point is that it is also the venue of the town's only COVID vaccination clinic. And because of, or I understand, because of company policy, the actual jabbing has to be done by a member of staff. I'm not a qualified volunteer, as has already been offered them. And someone is, on occasions, some pharmacist is having to juggle between the counter, the actual pharmacy functions at the counter, and nipping round to the other side of the place to do the jabbing, and it's simply not working. We know also it's causing the staff to suffer. Some have moved on because of it. It's generally a mess. They seem, the impression is, this is only a second-hand impression, that they're not getting much cooperation from head office in doing anything about this. So I suggest and propose that we send this letter or similar binding amendment that anybody wants to whoever it is at the head office, and just put it up to them and let them see that we're all concerned. It's not just the customers, the whole town is suffering from this. That's it really, just to write to them and see what they say, see if we have any effect.
I think they are definitely letting our little town down from their head office, not from their staff.
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder?
Right.
Councillor Whittingham. And all those in favour? Item number 18 on the agenda. Could we have an update on the hanging basket water tender?
Chair, if you, we did have two responses to the tenders.
Yep.
One was much more reasonably priced than the other.
Yep.
Both myself and Councillor Whip were present and opened the both tenders and read through them together. And we felt that Richard Pearson's tender was the value for money, and that's the one we should do. I think Joe has them there for you, Joe.
I do, yeah.
Wants to see them.
Let's look.
Having seen Richard in action on Sunday, I can safely say seems to be doing a very good job.
But for clarification as well, I'd like to point out that Joe was not part of that tender process because of
I'm aware of
her
that.
own conflict of interest.
Yes. I'm aware of that. And
Let's look at that.
Can I second Mike's proposal that we confirm the action that's been taken.
Yeah, you certainly can. Does everybody agree?
Thank you.
Right. Item number 19, request for use for the town square. This is a request to consider the use of the town square for a charity motorcycle club to use the square on the 19th of June from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. I assume is this to do with pensioners?
Yes.
They're fundraising. Yeah, fundraising for the pensioners centre on Frank Street. Tom?
As long as it doesn't interfere with any other pre-planned events, I'd say yes. Move to approve.
That's exactly what I was going to say, yeah.
Councillor Steele?
Chairman, just a small point. I think we should stipulate that they ensure that there isn't any oil drips on the flanks, and that they should put appropriate mitigation measures in place.
Obviously, health and safety is a high priority as well.
All we need is around the town square.
Multiple little children and with motorcycles
Oh,
on
there
the
was
town
one.
square. Sorry?
They were on there, they were good, I didn't know.
Chairman, there's the town square has become a regular pit stop for people touring around the area. But I've only seen a handful of bikes. I think the person who's organising this is one of the people that I've
I
seen.
think from what I've seen an advertisement, and they did say most of them are on Front Street. Right, all those in favour?
Me, I won't put numbers on like that.
Right, to consider, item number 20, to consider a request from Pendlebury Council to change the scheme of grass cutting for these areas. They're on the picture that Joe sent in an email on the 29th of April. Has everybody got that picture? I've actually yeah, that's the one.
Is that an age?
Which is
I printed
the
it off.
areas.
I printed it off, ripped it all up to do these again. They want to reduce the grass cutting.
Yeah, the area around the Green Hut and up towards Taylor Street. And then that bit there. David?
Well, I think Councillor Tanner knows more about this than I do, but my understanding is that this is in conjunction with a proposed tree planting scheme,
Yes.
and we have as a town council previously included the Taylor Street land as a potential tree planting site. I think there were a couple of provisos with that. The first proviso was that anything planted up towards the top should be shrub, low growing, so that the Taylor Street residents had maintained a clear view that they've currently got. And the second thing is we'd said that any tree planting should leave sufficient clear space for sledging, because people sledge down there. I don't think we considered the land behind the former Gospel Mission Hall for tree planting, and that's used as or potentially used as a dog exercise area. I've got no view on that. But I wasn't clear about the Valley Gardens bit. Am I correct in thinking it's the land at the top?
Yeah.
I am aware from when we created a wildflower area there previously that there were complaints from residents in the tourist houses surrounding whose children played football on that level bit. So I'd be less keen on putting that into a regime that didn't leave it playable.
So, does anybody talk?
Yeah, I'd refresh my memory. Have we actually considered the proposals from Pendle on the tree planting schemes? No.
No.
I think really they should have come to this meeting ideally. Yeah, so we're only really looking at one half of this. So, yeah, the area behind the possible mission hall, the thinking with the tree planting there was a more formal standards arrangement instead of a foresting scheme. So it could very well go hand in hand with the dog exercise area, with perimeter planting as well as maybe some copses in amongst.
That's useless legend.
It's very flat.
Oh, the put little.
But if it's a dog exercise area, we can stop and
Is it dog exercise area?
it's not currently.
Is it dog exercise area?
No, then.
No.
Oh,
It's not fenced off, is it?
I think you're around the percent.
So, do we need more information?
I'm going to guarantee it.
Really, this should have been considered in cohort with the request for approval of potential tree planting schemes. I think.
Right.
That wasn't the email, was it?
No,
I didn't know
no.
about it.
I'm pretty sure that was emailed through and we were CC'd on that. Chair, I would recommend that we defer this item for further consideration with the other
To
requests.
June.
Yeah.
No,
July.
July.
July, yeah. Item number 20.
I'm accepting that.
And do we have a vote?
Sure, the third rule.
Item number 21. The Barnoldswick Town Club Football Club lease for an extension of their request for an extension of their current lease.
Have you got the old first one? Oh. Do you want a new one? I've sent it yet.
I've already got this one.
Do you want that one?
It's mostly the same.
Yeah, we're not right.
Now our councillors are caught up.
That's impressive.
Do you think we were near the end?
Barnoldswick Town wants an extension of their lease in order to go out for grant funding for things. They're asking for 9 years.
David?
Chairman, the normal requirements for getting grants is a minimum of 25 years, and it might be that that's a more appropriate period. 99 years, none of us are going to be around, are we?
Speak for yourself.
It's
Very modern medicine to go in.
So,
So what are you suggesting?
I would suggest that we go back and say we're more than happy to extend it. I think is it 12 years remaining on the about 12 years remaining on the current lease, so we're more than happy to extend it to 25 or 30 say. But if we want to talk about a longer lease, I think we need to bring in the question of the car park area that Kendal Council created, sort of 15 or so years ago, and the football club had the offer of a longer lease.
Yes.
The request was that they became responsible for the maintenance of the car park area, and they declined that because they thought it was too onerous. So the town council remains responsible for the maintenance of the car park together with the access track, and although there isn't any expenditure we would anticipate in the next 10, 15 years. In the longer term, inevitably it will require resurfacing, and that will come at a cost. We got the work done further up the access track, meaning off Greenfield Lane, and we did a bit of Californian and got Pendle Council to pay for that. I can't remember how much it was, but it was about, no, I thought it was about 9.
Oh, right, okay.
It was about 9,000, so potentially there's quite a bit of liability in terms of future maintenance costs. So I think, you know, as a negotiating position, we offer them 30 years, and you know, we need to talk about what the annual payment is and when the reviews would be. But if they want a much longer lease, that we say, well, we'll consider a longer lease, but you'd have to take you know, responsibility for the car park, or you know, something in that order, in order for us to be willing to do it.
Who would get to draw up the lease?
Sorry, I didn't pick that up.
Who would get to draw up the lease?
Well, I think in the first instance it's a discussion
Right.
to be had,
Yeah.
and then we'd have to commission somebody to actually do the legal work, and I mean the expectation is that they will pay for our legal costs in agreeing any new lease.
Is that a motion or a
Yeah, I've moved that as a thing.
Yeah, second actually.
all those in favour?
Thank you.
Right, item number 22 on the agenda, to consider a request from the Majestic Church to use the town square for a service on Saturday the 25th of June. They would need access to electricity. Councillor, would you go?
Same as the last one, Chair, provided there's an interview with any kind of events.
Okay, anybody else?
I would also add on there that we need to ensure a competent person for any
Yeah.
such
An
electrician.
electrician. Yeah.
Not necessarily an electrician, just someone familiar with the equipment that we have there, and the safe operation.
Do you
Yeah.
have any volunteers?
No, they do.
Well, Chairman, just to back the condition of it, it's that you know, sort of the electric is used by a competent person,
Yes.
and one of our basic requirements is that the electric supply is covered. So wherever the power goes to, it needs to be undercover.
Yeah.
So the implication there is that a pop-up is employed.
Yes.
So I think we'd have to agree to the use of the equipment, and it may be, what date is it?
25th of June, we'll have the Tim's
25th of June.
Till.
So we'll have the pop-up there.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have the deck, the stage, but we'll have the pop-up, so, you know, they could use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that will be in situ. Right, all those in favour? Right, Harrison Street Dentist to receive a verbal update on the current position with the planning application for the dentist to make any necessary decisions and comment on this. Would this be... David?
Oh, it could have been Mike. but-
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry, that's
No, it's absolutely fine. I know what
Already done that now.
My dentist applied for an extension, a new floor, a first floor on the existing building, and their application included some land on Harrison Street for car parking, which would be accessed over the pavement, and that was a strip of land currently owned by Pendle Council, which is in process of transfer, community asset transfer to the town council. My dentist, we amended their application to exclude the strip of parking on Harrison Street, and that application was turned down by Pendle Council at a meeting earlier this year. During a site visit, which was carried out not on the planning side, but the landowners, together with the town council and my dentist, discussed the options for providing off-street parking provision in that vicinity, which you will recall, parking is a premium, it's a cul-de-sac, and the traffic itself is an issue.
Yeah.
Particularly at school times. The options discussed at that site meeting were firstly the possibility of land in the county council's ownership off Clifford Street but accessed from Lower Park Street, which is currently being considered as an area for parking both for residents and people going to the Church of England school. There would be the possibility of their making a contribution towards that scheme and to help that scheme stack up. The position with that is that the County Council haven't yet agreed to the release of that land, nor agreed to any funding to implement it, so it's very much up in the air. An alternative, or should I say two alternatives, were that a new parking area was provided on the land in the open space area, the green area, immediately adjacent to the play area, but it would be a block rather than a long strip. And then the third option was in effect for the current play area to become a parking area with my dentist providing a like-for-like new play area on the grassed area adjacent. So for the town council, it would be a betterment in terms of the play area is now probably around 15 years old, so we get new equipment, and the benefit for my dentist would be that they would have a parking area with an existing dropped curb immediately adjacent to their building, and for the residents it would mean that the visitors, or the patients going to my dentist would not be using the on-street parking. There is another option, but this wasn't accepted by the area committee, that no off-street parking was provided and that the patients be expected to walk from the Raynor Road car park. But as Councillor Whittingham pointed out at the meeting, one potential obstacle to that was that we're agitating to get that as a health centre, and so that would rule out the parking at that location and people walking. And human nature being what it is, there'd always be a number of people who wouldn't park there and walk, they'd just drive up on Addison Street and clog it all up. So I think the two options that involve the town council as landowner involve the land where the current play area is, and whether that could be flipped so that then becomes a car park entirely at the cost of my dentist, or if we made some other land available on the green grass and left the play area where it was.
Right. Do we need to make any decisions on this now, or?
There's nothing we can do at the moment, Chair, because the whole the whole application needs to be submitted with the new plans on it.
Okay.
I will say that my dentist did seem quite amenable, yeah, to having to replacing the playground and using that space because of where the space is in relation to the dentist itself means that the playground is a better parking area.
Yeah.
Because it's literally not right next door.
Next to it.
So, yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do about it now, just not.
Right. Councillor Wick?
Thanks, Chair. I question the betterness of the betterment of having a play area that isn't currently sited immediately adjacent to a car park become immediately adjacent to a car park. You're increasing the noise and air pollution immediately adjacent to it with cars coming and parking there. You've introduced extra risks immediately adjacent with the cars crossing over the pavement to get in and out of the car park. And I just don't think that that's... Currently we've got a car park, it's next to a green space amenity with no immediate movement of vehicles across the pavement to and from there. And by moving that over and introducing the car park there, you're adding that. And I question whether that's actually a betterment. Even if you have new equipment, you're making it overall worse if it's like for like.
Councillor Whittingham?
I disagree. The car park's for 10 spaces. The current dentist there has more people visiting. They have more people parking on the street and mounting the curb and blocking the drop curb that's already there. So I completely disagree. And the other thing was that when we spoke about it on site, we could have put the playground anywhere on that green space. So we have an option of quite a large area of where to position that playground. So it doesn't necessarily have to be right next to the car park.
Anybody else?
Just said it.
Chairman, Mike said he didn't think we could progress it, but my dentist did email, I think it was the borough councillors. Yeah, they did. I think because you forwarded it on to me because they hadn't actually sent it to the town's councillors. It was just for the ward. So, and it was before Chris was elected. So they are asking an open question: how do they take this forward? You know, how do they move forward with it?
How bizarre. Sorry, Chair, only because when we were on site, they were told by the planning officer that they had to submit a new plan. And
There's no point in submitting it if you don't indicate whether they'll be agreeable to it, because it's going to cost a fortune.
Yeah, Chairman, the approach was very much on the basis of the town councillors' landowners rather than the town councillors' consultees on the planning application.
Right.
So the ball's very much in our court to sort of say
What we prefer.
Yeah. I think I did suggest that we actually took this item with the exclusion of press and public because I thought it could compromise any negotiations that we might make. But I think it's very pertinent that we do discuss it in public for residents to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I agree.
But if we get down to nitty gritty, you know, sort of like potential terms, then I think that does need to be press and public excluded because it involves a contractual thing.
Do we need to move this to Tom?
Putting aside the particulars of the proposal to move said play area, I think in principle I'm against paving over any of that. If you move the play area even to the other end, you're still paving over an area that's currently green space for 10 cars. And that to me, you're not going to get green space back after that, are you? And that to me is just not worth it. I think Mr Watson at the area committee did say that it's very much on the edge of what is acceptable for sustainable urban development, meaning you don't need to have parking spaces. It's within a very dense built environment. People can walk to the dentist from their homes if they're with them locally. They don't need to drive to it. If you live on Harrison Drive, if you live on Park Avenue even, it's within very close walking distance. And you don't need to take your vehicle there. And so with the idea that actually parking isn't necessarily required for such a building, and the additional spaces at the dentists, and that we shouldn't be giving up this green space, which is very valuable and a commodity, for 10 parking spaces. I think we should be against this completely.
Councillor Whittle?
Chair, sorry, again, to disagree with Tom. While we were on the site visit, the planning officer did actually say if there was no parking, there was no planning. It was as simple as that. She said if there was no parking included with the planning, the application would be declined at planning stage.
That's not what was
As
said
simple
at
as
the
that.
meeting.
That's what she
Or
said.
in the reports
The
that
planning
came
officer said that on while we were on the site visit. So there is, without that, there is no extension to the dentist. There is no removal of the one on Park Lane, Park Road, whatever it's called. I just think, you know, having the playground replaced is a benefit to everyone nearby. It's a benefit for the children. Having the car park there, it's a benefit to my dentist to get to put the extension on. It's a benefit to people that want to go to my dentist to get the teeth looked at. Yes, there's buses and taxis and walking and stuff like that, but for the lazy people or the people that can't perhaps walk so far, this is a benefit, and I can't see a better option.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chairman. I need to I don't think Mike was at the meeting where the planning application was considered, but the recommendation, as I reflected, was for approval without the car parking provision being there.
It was.
So, you know, it's one of these jobs where you could do that, and it would be within the planning policies. And I think there's a lot of pros and cons. I think Councillor Tom Whip is you know, being quite purist about this, and I have to say, and I've said it to his face, he has been radicalised by his degree in civil engineering, he takes a very purist approach to sort of urban planning and things like that, and I'm the jaded old git that is more pragmatic, and you know, Tom says, well, you don't change the world by being pragmatic, do you? So I think, you know, the town council needs to weigh up these different issues, and I think, you know, there's definitely cons to doing away with green space. However, you could, if you wished, create a play area set within, you know, green turf. And if you look down Valley Gardens, the one there has green grass in between the individual items of playing equipment. And if you look down at the other end, there are the remnants of the old roundabout. The paving is still in place.
Yeah.
So in practice, how much green would you be losing? Perhaps not a lot. I think on the traffic question and having a play area next to vehicles, there's the main road at the top, there's Harrison Street at the side, there are a huge number of vehicle movements. But you know, an ideal location for a play area may be away from all those vehicle movements, and perhaps, you know, in an ideal world, it would be located perhaps on the land off Clifford Street, which is owned by the county council, and don't seem to be willing to to sort of community asset transfers or all like that, which move more away from traffic, but still well related to the surrounding urban area, which, as Tom pointed out, is very dense tourist area without any play space for kids to go to. So, as with anything else, it's a case of weighing things up, your benefits and disadvantages to doing things, and you end up with a compromise. And I think this is a case where you end up compromising because the ideal isn't achievable, so you go for what you can get. Now, in his radicalised purist,
the compromise is saying you don't get car parking, so you have to walk.
I do understand what you're saying, because I don't drive, so I have to walk.
However, in terms of the vehicle movements, I'm aware from work that we've done previously with my dentist that a lot of their patients come from a very big area. So, whether or not, and Tom's going to pull me up on this one in a bit, but whether or not it is practical for them to use public transport to access the facility is questionable. And the benefits of my dentist developing are there. They're not huge. There is an increase in the number of treatment rooms, and there's a big demand for dentistry. So, they get one more treatment room, a net increase of one more treatment room, because the implication of them building at Harrison Street is that they are saying that they will come out of the dentist on Park Avenue. Now, Park Avenue has a problem with the dentist being there because of the parking, the visitors, because of the nuisance to the neighbours. So there is a benefit in allowing the extension of the one on Harrison Street. It benefits the provision of dentists, it benefits the taking it out of Park Avenue where the parking is a problem. And you need to weigh all these things up. And if you say you're going to allow the dentist to extend without any off-street parking provision over and above what they've currently got, you've got a whole host of residents who live on Harrison Street and Lower Park Street, and two of them came out when we had a site visit, and they were in no uncertain terms saying, look, you cannot approve this without there being parking. We've got all these problems with parked vehicles, and you're going to make it worse if you develop this without the off-street parking provision. So I think that sets out the sort of advantages and the disadvantages. And I think, going back to one of my first points, is the town council, as the owner and responsible for the play area, also has to throw into the pot the fact that in the course of a few years' time, that play area, together with all the other play areas in Barnoldswick, will need renewing and replacing. And the going rate is around about £60,000. And we have got 10 play areas. So you're looking at over £500,000 to be found over a period of a number of years. And you can capitalise that and sort of borrow money to do that, but it is going to be at a cost to the council taxpayers one way or another. And so the town council shouldn't turn a blind eye to opportunities to upgrade the equipment, renew the equipment at no cost to itself. I think that has to go into the pot for conservation.
Chris?
Thank you. Could we bear in mind as well, I do take the point about there being other car parks within a short walk nearby, But let's remember these are people coming to and from dental treatment
Yes.
and may not feel up to a bit of a show.
As I said, being someone that can't drive, if I went for dental treatment, I walk backwards and forwards, it's that simple. But
You're not 80 with a bad head.
this is true. I want to leave it there and talk
I think that two issues are being conflated here. The benefits of the My Dentist increasing, as you say, a one treatment increase. We know from the recommendation for approval by the planning officers that that can happen irregardless of any decisions made here.
Yeah.
A net increase of one treatment room means if we with the proposal to create spaces, that one increase means 10 parking spaces. Now that is 3 parking, and from the documents, that would be 3 parking spaces per treatment room in that building. So that's the dentist, the assistant and the patient. I think that is an unreasonable assumption in that all 3 of those people do not live locally and have to drive there. It seems an unreasonable amount of parking spaces. In addition, it's documented and evidence that increasing the easiness of using motorised vehicles to get to places, to park them there, increases the amount of traffic. It's called induced demand, and if you make it easy, people will do it. Even if they're within easy walking distance, if they can then drive and find a parking space with no problem, they will do that because it's easier. If you make it harder to park up, you'll get less trips, less traffic. You then reduce the amount of traffic on Harrison Street.
Unfortunately, dental care is not essential. So people don't make those choices on that level, unfortunately. It's, yeah. Do we have...
Can I make a proposal which kicks it off a bit? But we have a site visit to the town council to actually go and look at the situation on there and assess, what is pragmatic, what is possible, and taking Tom's points into view, whether in principle it's something that we should be encouraging or, we take the principles approach and sort of try and do a sustainable whatever,
Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I just get on it.
All those in favour?
Good for the site visit, yeah. Again.
Right. Item number 24, vacancies. To report that due to recent resignations, my brain went from car parking. From the town council, we currently have 2 vacant positions. This has been advertised by Peddleborough Council and an election wasn't called. To now decide the process of co-option.
Do you want to read it last time?
Same day, just do it the same.
Do we want to follow?
Actually, no.
That was all complicated.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should do it the same way as we did last time. And anonymous would be good this time.
Yes.
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Sorry.
Anonymous.
No.
Hang on. We could still rank choices in an anonymous way with ballot. I think numbering choices,
Not
1,
allowed,
2, 3, 4, 5. Well, we can vote in any way we wish for co-option.
I don't think it could be done in secret. I can check.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the applications.
Wasn't the issue we got last time, the applications that we got, we forgot to give them the option as to whether or not they wanted to be anonymous?
Couldn't read the names out.
Yeah, we just need to tick on.
We needed them to say for GDPR
Yeah,
what the names are.
I mean, I think in terms of accepting public office, that it's not a job, it's a public office, and you've got to know who those people are.
I mean,
Do you want to?
Well, we did know who they were. but it was for the public to know who they were while we were going through the process, because it was on Zoom.
Yeah, we were virtual.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we just advertised the fact that we've got 2 vacancies.
Yeah.
We asked for people to write out, you know, a letter, and that we consider those applications at our meeting in July.
Is everyone, do we have a second for that?
Yeah, I do that.
Is everybody in agreement?
Amazing.
To consider a request from the Greyhound for the use of Leckcliffe Park to hold a tug of war competition on the 13th of August. We have already sort of gone round that.
Yeah, I've no issues with that, so.
Health and safety.
Health and safety, it's all that sort of wonderful stuff. Happy to proceed.
Second? David? For council team.
You're late down there, just checking.
Thank you very much.
All those in favour? Leckcliffe Park, item number 26, Leckcliffe Park new reservoir work to receive a verbal update on current position and with the planning and access to make any decisions for this any decisions after this update.
Could I ask, Chairman,
Yes.
if we've had any further advice from our land agent?
No.
I think we're in some difficulty here. The position is that Yorkshire Water notified us quite some while ago that they were intending building a reservoir on land, if I say down King Hill, behind Park Road. People understand where we're talking about. They approached the Town Council to say we'd like to use Leckcliffe Park as an access through to the works taking place down the hill. And they said, you know, we're asking you, but we've got statutory rights and we can serve notice on you and we can force you into allowing the work to access their site. We then, at Yorkshire Water's cost, instructed a land agent to act on our behalf, and Yorkshire Water indicated a payment of so much money every month whilst the works were taking place, whilst they used Leckcliffe Park as an access to their construction site. And the payments were pro rata with the other landowners whose land was similarly affected. When the planning application was considered, Pendle Council said, well, we're not happy with various aspects of the work, which included some stuff that is not of interest to the Town Council as a landowner, but it did include a requirement for pedestrian access in the park to be improved above and beyond what Yorkshire Water were proposing to do. So that plan application was deferred. Subsequently, and only a couple of weeks ago, there was a site visit up at the park to which all councillors were invited. Joe and myself attended, and we met with our land agent, Yorkshire Water, and representatives from Eric Wright, the contractors.
Yeah.
And Joe and myself outlined what the Town Council were asking for, and made some suggestions about how that could be achieved. The work that we were asking for included replacement parking, don't want to get Tom going again, but replacement parking, whilst the bigger car park up there was actually taken out of use entirely, and for a footpath to run alongside the access track where it comes into Leckley Park off Leckley Lane, where it's quite a narrow track and there'd be a conflict between pedestrians and the HGVs taking material into the construction site. We then got, and we said, you know, if they could come up with a proposal, you know, with including our requirements, that we could discuss it at the town council meeting, which was scheduled for a fortnight ago but postponed to tonight. Between then and now, a plan came through which didn't show an access to their construction site, but then commandeering a considerable area around that larger car park for the construction of a compound with, I think it was 2 cabins plus a generator, or even 3 cabins plus a generator. And the nature of the beast has changed entirely from, you know, allowing wagons to drive through the park and go down the hill, to allowing wagons to drive through the park and having a dirty grey compound occupying a big area around that larger car park. Subsequently, and nothing to do with the town council, but a resident who lives immediately next to the park has reported to me that a representative from Yorkshire Water or the contractors, I'm not quite clear which, went to the park on a lovely sunny day, came to a stop, you know, standstill, shocked at the number of people using the park, and said to the neighbouring resident, good grief, if there's that many people using the park, we're going to have to close it.
No.
So I just report what a resident has reported to me, but I have every faith that is accurate. I know it's hearsay. So, you know, when we got the plan through and we were taking this big area and all the rest of it, I said, you know, we need to get onto the land as a matter of urgency. We haven't had a response. I mean, I think the proposals are inadequate in several respects. First of all, the temporary pedestrian access, they were just having people walking up or down grass bankings, rather than provided a bit of a surface track, which was convenient. Movement of the footpath, inadequate replacement car parking for that would be lost during the course of the work. I think I suggested a bit of betterment. Oh yes, that was the other thing. The generator that would power up their compound would be running for a considerable number of hours a day. Could be quite noisy. It's a nice quiet area, is the park. So it'd be people would complain, I've come up to the park for a nice quiet walk and that damn generator's going all the time. So I suggested that they could put in a permanent power supply off the nearby overhead cables. Perfectly possible to do it. So my view is the town council should formally express its disquiet at the revised nature of their proposal, and request that urgent discussions be held with Yorkshire Water, its contractors, via our land agent, in order to resolve the outstanding issues. They could put a planning application in with all that in, which Pendle Council would consider the planning application, but and perhaps they can force us, in some sort of, they can compel us to hand the land over. Don't know whether they can compel us to shut the park, but I think I'm completely aghast at the suggestion that they might do so.
It's back to the old thing of it won't be them that deal with the fallout if that does happen.
No.
It will be us.
Mm.
And that's unfair. And it's unfair in our community for us to even think that's an option. Do we have a seconder for David, Tom?
Yeah, I'll second that.
And are we all in agreement?
I'm looking at the drawing.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, aren't you?
Yes, I am actually looking at the drawing for that
Yes.
park.
Yes.
Dominated
So
chapter.
we need to make sure there's no questions from the public.
Have we got any
And then we
questions
need to
from
go
the
to
public?
we need to switch off the cameras to deal with the urgent item.
I think it's just someone saying how gracious our overlord is, like,
Oh,
is he a good friend?
would that be someone called James?
Oh yeah, it's an overlord, it's Mr. Fair.
He's run me during this meeting
Is
as
he?
well.
A few choices.
I have a food choice words for him, it's okay.
Chair, something I asked through you to Councillor Thomas. Is this a chat contribution that we'll be deleting following the meeting, or is it?
It's, I see no reason to remove it.
Okay.
Personally.
That's funny, it's not offensive.
He
It's
said
not.
far more offensive things about
There have been
Pity
some,
mask.
there have been some redacted comments which we can no longer read.
Okay.
So, Chairman, I will move the exclusion of press and public with the form of words because of the revelation of personal what's-its.
Yes.
Chairman, second.
Are we all
We
in
need to make
agreement?
sure we're off.
Right. Can we make sure we're applying
I need to make sure.